Here are 8 true scary stories that will make her think twice before driving alone at night.
Some things your eyes might play tricks on, but it...
Isolated bubble. But the terrifying truth is that you have no idea what or who is waiting for you, just beyond the reach of those lights, until it's too late to turn back. Here are 8 true scary stories involving unnerving encounters on the road at night. On the night of April 18, 2021, at around 7:40 p.m., an Australian man named Mitch Cooney was driving down the Hume Highway in Bar. He was exhausted, returning from a racing event, and just wanted to get home to the Gold Coast. The highway was dark, the kind of darkness where the world outside your windows just ceases to exist. He was cruising at nearly 60 miles per hour, towing a large toy hauler trailer behind his vehicle. At that speed, with that kind of weight behind you, stopping on a dime isn't an option. Suddenly, his headlights caught something in the middle of the road. It wasn't a kangaroo or a deer. It was a person. Mitch's heart hammered against his ribs as his brain processed the image in split seconds. It looked like a small child, maybe 6 or 7 years old, wearing a blue parka. The figure was just standing there in the darkness, right in the middle of the highway, seemingly trying to cross. Mitch gripped the wheel, knuckles white. Swerving or slamming on the brakes with a heavy trailer would have almost certainly caused the vehicle to jackknife and flip, likely killing everyone involved. He had no choice but to hold his line. Miraculously, he missed the figure by mere inches. As the child blurred past his window, a wave of nausea hit him. His mother, who was in the passenger seat, immediately dialed the Australian police. They were frantic, terrified that a child was wandering alone on a highway with cars flying by at highway speeds. The dispatcher assured them that patrols were being sent out immediately, but the image of that small figure in the blue parka wouldn't leave Mitch's mind. At 8:29 p.m., almost an hour later, he called the police again. He told them he had dashcam footage of the encounter and wanted to send it to them to help the search. To his relief, the officer on the line told him that they had swept the area and found a young child matching the description. They said the boy was safe and was being returned to his home as they spoke. Mitch felt a massive weight lift off his shoulders. He even posted on Facebook later that night, saying, "I felt absolutely sick when all this happened. I instantly felt so much better when I was told the kid had been collected." But that relief didn't last long. After uploading the dashcam footage online to share his unnerving experience, the story started to gain traction. And that is when the New South Wales Police Department released an official statement that made Mitch's blood run cold. They claimed that they never found a child. According to the official report, officers had scoured the surrounding area for nearly 8 hours, searching until 3:45 in the morning. They used multiple cars, maybe even dogs, but found absolutely zero trace of a child. The search was eventually called off. So, why did the officer on the phone tell Mitch the child was found? Maybe it was a miscommunication. Maybe the dispatcher confused this case with another one. Or maybe, just maybe, they told him that just to calm him down. But if the police report is true, and no child was ever found, then what happened to the boy in the blue parka? Did his parents realize he was gone and come get him before the police arrived? Or did someone else find him first? Someone with darker intentions, who saw a vulnerable child alone on a highway and took the opportunity. To this day, nobody knows who that child was, or where he went, and the footage remains as the only proof that he was ever there at all. On May 8, 2021, a TikTok user, known as Pissed Pasta, whose real name is Molly, was driving home with friends after a night out. It was around 2:30 in the morning, the dead time of night where the roads are empty and everything feels a little surreal. They were driving down a road next to the Rogue River in Belmont, Michigan. The conversation in the car died down when one of the friends pointed out the window. "Did you guys see that?" They claimed they saw a shadow crawling onto the road from the embankment. The group debated for a moment before deciding to turn around. If someone was hurt, they couldn't just leave them there. They circled back, their headlights cutting through the mist near the river. And there she was, a young woman, soaking wet, sitting right in the middle of the asphalt. She looked to be in her 20s. She was shivering violently. It was only 48 degrees outside, and she was doing something disturbing. She was either waving frantically at the car or hitting herself in the head. It was hard to tell in the erratic beams of light. Molly and her friends circled back one more time to get a better look. By the time they passed again, the woman had collapsed completely, lying prone on the cold road. This is the part where most horror movies begin. A group of friends stops to help a stranger and ends up in a nightmare. Molly and her friends realized this could be a setup for a robbery or carjacking, so they made the smart choice. They stayed inside the locked car and called 911. Emergency responders arrived quickly and rushed the woman to the hospital. Later, Molly returned to the scene. The road was still damp where the woman had been lying. Near the riverbank, she found fresh dig marks in the mud, suggesting the woman had clawed her way up from the freezing water just moments before their car passed by. Police later found the woman's car parked behind a random house on the other side of the river. It seemed she had fallen in, swam across the entire river in the pitch black, and crawled up to the road. But the story gets stranger. Earlier that night, residents in the area had reported a woman wandering through their backyards. One man on Douglas Street said a woman walked right into his house, yelling hello, before wandering back out into the yard. When the woman recovered enough to speak to investigators, she identified herself as a 28-year-old student named May. She was from Kalamazoo, a town over 60 miles away. The terrifying part, May had absolutely no memory of how she got to Belmont. She didn't remember driving there. She didn't remember the river. Before she went missing, she had told friends she felt like she had a stalker. She felt watched. While kidnapping is a theory, the police found no evidence of foul play. Instead, it's believed the extreme stress of feeling hunted triggered a dissociative fugue state. Basically, her mind snapped. She forgot who she was, drove 60 miles to a town she didn't know, wandered through strangers' homes, and eventually walked into a freezing river. It's a terrifying reminder of how fragile the human mind can be. One minute you're studying for finals, and the next, you're waking up in a hospital bed 60 miles away, having narrowly survived drowning in a river you don't remember entering. October 12, 2016. The height of the killer clown craze. If you remember 2016, you remember how weird it got. People dressing up as clowns, standing on street corners, chasing cars. It started as a prank trend, but quickly spiraled into something dangerous. A family in Sheffield, England, was driving home from a pub around midnight. They turned onto a deserted road called Grange Mill Lane. It's the kind of road that's pitch black at night, with trees crowding in on both sides. As they rounded a corner, their headlights illuminated a figure standing in the middle of the road. It was a clown. He wasn't just standing there, he was blocking the path. As the driver slowed down, the clown started running toward the car. Now, usually, you'd roll your eyes and drive around, but just 3 days earlier, a man named Simon Chinnery had been attacked by an The family inside was screaming. The driver threw the car into drive, swerved around the figure, and floored it. The clown jumped out of the way at the last second, disappearing into the rear-view mirror. Who knows what his intentions were? Maybe it was a prank. Or maybe, like the man who attacked Simon Chinnery, he had a knife hidden in that costume, waiting for a car to stop just long enough to use it. On June 2, 2018, a police officer in Fulshire, Texas, was driving back to the station after a long shift. He was following a sedan on a dark two-lane road. Suddenly, the sedan in front of him swerved violently into the oncoming lane. The officer braked, wondering if a deer had run out, but as his headlights swept over the road, he saw what the driver had avoided. It looked like a crime scene. A young woman in a blue shirt was lying perfectly flat across the lane. She was stiff, motionless. The officer's first thought was that she was dead, maybe a body dumped from a moving vehicle. He pulled over, her heart racing, and approached her cautiously. To his shock, as he got close, she sat up. She seemed completely unbothered by the fact that she was lying on a highway at night. She stood up, swaying slightly. It turned out, she wasn't a victim of a violent crime. She was the victim of her own bad decisions. She had crashed her car into a ditch nearby while driving under the influence. The combination of intoxication and a likely concussion made her behave irrationally. In her confused state, she decided the middle of the road was a good place to take a nap. If that first car hadn't swerved, or if the officer had been looking down at his radio for just a second, this story would have had a much more tragic ending. Let's go back to 1946. Texarkana, Texas. This is a story that still haunts the town to this day. On the night of February 26, 25-year-old Jimmy Hollis and his girlfriend, Mary Jean, were driving home after a movie. They parked on a secluded stretch of road, just outside the city limits to talk. It was a lover's lane spot, quiet and dark. About 10 minutes later, a man stepped out of the woods. He walked right up to the driver's side door. Jimmy rolled down the window, probably expecting a police officer telling them to move along. Instead, he saw a face covered by a white pillowcase. 2 jagged holes had been cut out for eyes. The figure pointed a flashlight into Jimmy's face, blinding him. "I don't want to kill you, fella," a muffled voice said. "Just do what I say." The man ordered them out of the car. Jimmy, terrified, complied. As soon as he stepped onto the gravel, the masked man swung a heavy object, possibly a gun, butt cracking Jimmy's skull. He collapsed instantly. Mary screamed and tried to run toward the tree line. The man caught her, tackled her, and knocked her out too. Miraculously, the attacker was spooked by the headlights of an approaching car and fled back into the darkness. Jimmy and Mary both survived, though Jimmy suffered a fractured skull. When they gave their statements to the police, things got weird. They both described the man as being about 6 feet tall and slender, but Jimmy swore the man was white, while Mary was adamant he was a light-skinned black man. Police assumed it was a random robbery or a personal grudge. They were wrong. A month later, on March 24th, a passing driver noticed a car parked on a lonely road. Inside, he saw what looked like two people sleeping. When he tapped on the glass, they didn't move. Richard Griffin and Polly Ann Moore had been shot in the back of the head. It was the same MO. A couple parked on a dark road, an ambush from the shadows. 3 weeks later, it happened again. Another young couple, Paul Martin and Betty Jo Booker, were found dead on a rural road. Same gun caliber, same style of execution. The town of Texarkana went into a panic. People stopped going out at night. They bought guns. They locked their doors. The killer was dubbed the Texarkana Phantom. Police eventually arrested a man named Yowell Swinney, a car thief who fit the physical description perfectly, but they never found enough hard evidence to charge him with the murders. He went to prison for car theft, but the Phantom killings remain officially unsolved to this day. Nobody knows for sure who was under that white pillowcase. Fast forward to January 8, 2024. Australia. A truck driver was navigating a remote stretch of highway south of Perth. It was 11 p.m., pitch black, miles from any town. His headlights illuminated two figures on the side of the road. They were dragging something. It was heavy. Whatever it was, they were struggling to pull it across the asphalt. The truck driver had to swerve to avoid hitting them. As he passed, he looked into his side mirror. The figures had vanished into the scrubbed dashcam footage of the incident surfaced later. When slowed down, it reveals a chilling detail. The object they are dragging looks undeniably like a body. You can see what appears to be legs, wearing shorts and black shoes, dragging limply along the ground. Skeptics say it could be a large kangaroo, or maybe a life-size doll. But the way the limbs moved, the weight of it, it looked human. Why would two people be dragging a body across a highway in the middle of nowhere? Were they disposing of evidence? Or was it something else entirely? The truck driver didn't stop to ask, and honestly, I don't blame him. Road rage is scary enough during the day. At night, it's a different beast entirely. On September 16, 2018, an Uber driver on Long Island was nearing the end of a trip with passengers in the back. The road was narrow and dark. Suddenly, a car roared up behind them, swerving erratically. The other driver whipped around the Uber, cut him off, and slammed on the brakes, forcing the Uber to a screeching halt. A man jumped out of the front car. He was screaming, veins bulging in his neck. He ran to the Uber driver's window and started pounding on the glass. "Get out of the car," he screamed. "Get the F*** out." The Uber driver, terrified but calm, locked the doors. His passengers were crying in the back seat. "I'm not getting out," the driver said. The man kept screaming, trying to rip the door handle off. "Just go. Go around him." The passengers yelled. The Uber driver threw the car into reverse, spun around, and took off in the opposite direction. But the nightmare wasn't over. Headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. The angry driver had turned around and was chasing them. The Uber driver sped through the dark streets, taking random turns, trying to lose the tail. Every time he looked back, those headlights were there, getting closer. They approached a red light at a major intersection. If they stopped, the man would catch them. If they ran it, they might crash. Then, a stroke of luck. A police cruiser was sitting at the intersection. The Uber driver pulled up next to the cop, frantically waving and honking. The pursuer, blinded by rage or alcohol, pulled up right behind them. The officers arrested the man immediately. He was intoxicated and belligerent. In the dashcam footage, you can hear the sheer panic in the passengers' voices. If that police officer hadn't been there, and the angry driver had caught them on a dark stretch of road, things could have ended very differently. These stories are a reminder that while your car feels like a fortress, it's just a glass and metal box. When you're driving alone at night, the world shrinks down to what you can see in your headlights. And sometimes, What's waiting in the dark is looking right back at you. So next time you're on a lonely road, and you see something strange, keep driving, lock your doors, and don't stop until you're safe.
Think you're brave enough to handle what comes next? Prove it. Hit subscribe to Nightmare right now. Let's see how long you last.